Hello. All right. Hey, it's time for chapter 14 in our The Ministry of Ordinary Places. I'm so enjoying this book. I'm going to be sad when we finished. Okay, grab your coffee, whatever time of day it is. Grab your wine and let's sit down and enjoy our next chapter. Arms linked. Sometimes the thing I miss most about my old life is the tranquility of my bird's eye view. It's not the farmhouse of my dreams, the ample square footage, the sturdy salaries, or the sheen of success that I miss. It's being tucked in among the clouds where, if I even bothered looking down at all, the problems are ant like, no more than tiny smudges far below the comfort and beauty of the life I loved. I miss the simplicity of my inward facing world, wallpapered exclusively with the stuff I wanted and with myself. My family, my opinions, my faith, my security. I miss the luxury of a safe distance where the only problems I worried about were my own. I was no more selfish then than I am today. I wasn't cold hearted. I just hadn't fallen from my perch. I don't know what I don't know. I didn't know what I don't know. I hadn't acquired a taste for the complication of mixing my life into the lives around me, far different from my own. The thing about paying attention to our ordinary places is that the more intently we study them, the more layered and detailed they become. Trouble surfaces like the hidden images embedded in those old 3D posters. Stare long enough, let your vision acclimate, and whoa, there it is. It shows up inconveniently, shattering our easy answers. It rattles the gates of our tightly reined existence. It costs us the peace of oblivion, whatever, and the consolation of our quiet esteem. Boy, I couldn't get that out. Attentiveness isn't a life plan for living numb. Now, this is our warning. The more deeply our roots sink into the soil, the more we will uncover the places in our world where things are not fair. We'll encounter different circumstances and be moved in different directions. We'll stop minding our own business in unique ways. But the question we're faced with will ring out in unison as we're pressed to decide whether we'll fight for those we love or close ranks and keep things tidy. What are you going to do about this? God only knows the second option will likely feel safest. We'll want to run and hide just as the Israelites wanted to do when they found themselves in unfamiliar land. Build homes and plan to stay, he told them through the prophet Jeremiah. Plant gardens, create families. Easy enough. But then he goes too far, as he always does. He shakes us up and pokes into our personal space. And work for the peace and prosperity of the city which I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare. Essentially, if those around us aren't free, we aren't either. This is a revelation I was contemplating when I first saw Mac out my front windows, wandering aimlessly around the neighborhood. For all my early days spent waiting for God to give me something to do, when opportunity finally found me, I didn't feel ready. Swapping my binoculars for a chisel and shovel hinted at work more taxing than I was hoping for. But when Mac's situation came to my attention, I started chipping away one stroke at a time at the mystery behind his expulsion. What had appeared months earlier to be an impenetrable block of stone was revealing itself in excruciating detail. As I got to know him better, looking at the whiteness of his eyes, as my mom might say, the whole story emerged like a modern-day weeping, grieving Petra. Just like the oak trees dotting my path each day, the roots of the truth stretched disproportionately underground. Mac was barely 5 foot tall, still a little twitchy about making eye contact, and so soft spoken I often had to ask him to repeat himself. He was much too young to know the implications of the story being written for him by people doing their jobs without the aid of excavation. The labels troubled and dangerous did not fit the kid standing on my porch, so I started digging. There was no margin for complacency. I knew what would likely follow for Mac. I'd seen it all in hindsight with our oldest son, Robert. I'd seen it in many of Corey's friends at the jail. Reality showed with blinding clarity that black boys are expelled far more frequently than others for identical offenses. What tends to follow school expulsion is juvenile detention and eventually adult incarceration. I had a preview of how Mac's life might play out if the world didn't begin to gaze on him with the same promise, expectation, and opportunity afforded other boys. This bright, funny, engaging child, who had no serious history of major disciplinary trouble and who did not pose a threat to his community, was pushed out of it and left alone. Nell Barnstein, a researcher on race and education, said, "Children do best when they're held close." I came to see that holding someone close can look very much like locking arms and demanding answers. Tentatively at first, taking great care not to back myself into a corner, bite off more than I could chew, or suffer the consequence of relevant idioms, I started asking questions. Tossed out of middle school for the entire year, there were no services in place for him. No alternative programming, no tutoring, no second chances. Without meaning to, and certainly without hoping to, I'd found a crack in the very public school system I championed, along with a reminder that constructive critique is good and necessary, even and especially when it's personal. I had two choices: retreat or engage. I love and tirelessly support our public school system, but I love the people it serves more. People are greater than systems, every time. Standing with the individual might stretch our ideas about time management and overall ROI, but this is often broken systems that begin to need to be repaired. It can be difficult sometimes to discern fracture in the context of thousands of people, but one child rises up as living proof, grabbing our attention and refusing to let go. As the singular illuminates the whole, we are left to move either toward or away from the trouble at hand. Sister Helen Purgeon said, "Being kind in an unjust system is not enough." Was I ready to heave a portion of Mac's burden onto my own shoulders, even if it caused a fuss and many wouldn't understand? I stewed and I lost some sleep. I checked my motives and fretted over my reputation. Finally, I wrote one email, a single domino that tipped 100 more. Many phone calls, correspondence, crying jags, boatloads of meetings, some in administrative offices, some on my front lawn later. On the heels of a good deal of hand-wringing, working closely with his mom, and exhausting all other options, it was decided that Mac would come sit with me at my kitchen table for tutoring each weekday from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. For many of you, this sounds like a dream scenario. I, on the other hand, am cut from a different cloth. I shower my kids' teachers with support and encouragement because I'm in awe of the work that they do, and I want them to keep doing it so I don't have to. I was the only girl in elementary school who didn't harbor some future teacher goals. What I'm saying is, as we inspect our geography for wounds, we aren't given the luxury of choosing what we'll uncover or our role in delivering first aid. I thought my job was to notice the problem, connect the right people. I honestly believed, foolishly, arrogantly, that I would convince the school to change their tune. When it became evident that this might, at least for a while, fall on me, I was more bummed out than invigorated and grateful. What are you going to do about this? I asked God on repeat. To my great frustration, his response every time was, "How much bread do you have?" Hang on just a second.